I remember the heat of his hands on my skin that night, the way his fingers seemed to instinctively know where to touch, where to press. We were tangled together on the couch, the dim light from the kitchen casting long shadows across the room as the storm raged outside. The rain lashed against the windows, but it was nothing compared to the storm within me. I knew what we were doing was wrong. I knew I was betraying the one person who trusted me the most, my mother. But I couldn't stop. The intensity of it all was intoxicating, overwhelming. Gabriel's breath was hot against my neck, each kiss sending shockwaves through me, igniting something deep inside, something I'd fought so hard to suppress. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He was my mother's husband. He was supposed to be family. Gabriel has always been there. But as I grew older, things changed. The way he looked at me changed. It wasn't just a friendly gaze anymore. It lingered a little too long. His touch was softer, more intentional. And I felt it too. This pull, this magnetic force that drew me closer to him even though I knew it was wrong. For months, we danced around it, pretending that nothing was happening, that we were still just two people who shared polite conversation during family dinners. But tonight, everything had changed. The line we had carefully avoided crossing was now behind us, and we were both tumbling headfirst into something we couldn't control. His lips found mine, soft at first, like a question, like he was giving me a chance to stop it before it went too far. But I didn't pull away. Instead, I kissed him back with a hunger I hadn't realized was there, and suddenly, there was no going back. The kiss deepened, growing more desperate, more needy, and my hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. Our breaths mixed, ragged and heavy, as if we couldn't get enough of each other. He pressed me back into the cushions, his body warm and solid against mine, and for a moment it felt like everything else faded away. There were no consequences. No guilt, only the feel of his hands exploring every inch of me, and the way my body responded to his touch. I gasped as his hands roamed down my sides, sending shivers through me, and I arced into him, craving more. It was reckless, it was dangerous, but in that moment I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was the way he made me feel. Alive, wanted, seen. It was something I hadn't felt in so long. Something I had convinced myself I didn't need. But now that I had it, I couldn't let go. I knew it couldn't last. Knew the guilt would come crashing in later like the storm outside. But right then, all I wanted was him. His kisses grew more urgent, more possessive, and I moaned softly into his mouth, pulling him closer, deeper. My heart raced, and I felt the world spinning around us, lost in a haze of passion and heat. But then, as quickly as it began, it ended. Gabriel pulled back, his forehead resting against mine, both of us gasping for air, the reality of what we had just done slowly creeping back in. His hands caught my face, his thumb gently brushing over my lips as he whispered, "We shouldn't be doing this." "I know," I whispered back, but my fingers clung to his arms, refusing to let go. "But I don't care." His eyes were filled with a mix of desire and torment as he looked at me. "You don't understand," he said softly. "If your mother finds out..." "Stop," I interrupted, pressing a finger against his lips to silence him. "I don't want to think about her right now. I don't want to think about anything but you." His resolve crumbled at my words, and with a low growl, he kissed me again, harder this time, more desperate. We both knew this was dangerous, that we were on the brink of something that could destroy everything. But in that moment, none of it mattered. We were lost in each other, in the fire that had been burning between us for so long. His hands moved over my body, and I felt myself melt into him. The heat between us building again, stronger this time, more intense. Then the guilt came. Not in small waves, but like a tidal surge that crashed down, drowning me in its weight. I couldn't stop thinking about my mother, the woman who had trusted me, who had given me everything. And now I was betraying her in the worst possible way. Gabriel must have sensed it too, because he pulled away again, his breathing heavy, his forehead resting against mine as we tried to steady ourselves. "We have to stop," he murmured, though there was no conviction in his voice. "This can't happen again." "I know," I whispered, but deep down I wasn't sure if I believed it. I didn't want it to stop. I didn't want to give up this feeling, this connection that had awakened something inside me that I thought was long dead. We didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, Gabriel and I fell deeper into each other, stolen moments and secret rendezvous, each time telling ourselves it would be the last, but it never was. We couldn't stay away from each other, no matter how much we knew we should. The more time we spent together, the more I realized how much I wanted him, not just physically but emotionally. He understood me in a way no one else ever had, and with him I felt free. But that freedom came with a price. One evening, after another family dinner, we found ourselves alone in the kitchen cleaning up. The house was quiet, everyone else asleep, and the tension between us was palpable. I could feel him standing close behind me, the warmth of his body radiating against mine. And when his hand brushed my arm, I knew I was lost. I looked up at him, my breath catching in my throat, as our eyes locked, and in that moment, I knew there was no turning back. He didn't kiss me this time. There were no words, no hesitation. He simply pulled me into him, his hands cradling my face, as if I was something fragile, something precious. And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about my mother or the consequences. I was just his. We moved together, slow and deliberate, savoring every touch, every kiss, as if we knew it would be the last time, but deep down we both knew it wouldn't be. His hands moved with a kind of gentleness that took my breath away, fingers tracing the outline of my jaw, brushing over my lips, before resting at the nape of my neck. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and in that instant, the world outside ceased to exist. There was no guilt, no looming regret, just the warmth of his touch, the intensity of his gaze, and the unspoken connection that held us together. Slowly, he leaned in, and our lips met, soft at first, exploring, tasting, like we had all the time in the world. The kiss deepened, and my body responded. pressing against him as if I was trying to get closer, to close the distance that still lingered between us. His hand slipped down to my waist, pulling me even nearer. Our bodies fitting together in a way that felt both familiar and new. Every brush of his lips, every movement of his hands, sent a wave of warmth through me, igniting something deep inside that had long buried. We moved slowly, deliberately, savoring each moment, letting the weight of what we were doing hang in the air between us, but not yet ready to face it. As we sank into each other, time seemed to blur, and all I could feel was the rhythm of our bodies, the quiet intensity building between us. His lips found my neck, sending shivers down my spine, and my hands clung to him, not wanting to let go. Nothing else mattered but the feel of his skin against mine, the way his breath hitched as we moved together, lost in the intensity of it all. As we lay there afterward, tangled in each other, the weight of what we had done settled over me like a heavy blanket. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep lying to myself, to my mother, to everyone around me, but I didn't know how to stop. The next morning, everything changed. I overheard my mother on the phone talking to Gabriel. I hadn't known they were planning a weekend away together. A chance to reconnect after months of distance. My stomach twisted in knots, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about them, their marriage, their life, and I had been the one to tear it apart. I had to end it. I had to stop before everything came crashing down around me. But the thought of losing Gabriel, of walking away from the one person who made me feel alive, was unbearable. That evening, I met Gabriel in the archives, where we had often stolen away for our secret moments. The air was thick with tension, and as soon as I saw him, I knew something was different. His eyes were darker, his expression more guarded, and I felt my heart sink. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, staring at me as if he was trying to figure out what to say. And then finally, he nodded. "Neither can I." The silence between us was deafening, the weight of our decision pressing down on me like a physical force. I wanted to scream, to cry, to take it all back, but I knew I couldn't. We had already crossed too many lines, made too many mistakes. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving Gabriel standing there in the dimly lit archives, the weight of our affair hanging heavy in the air. As I walked out into the night, the storm still raging outside, I felt the full force of my actions hit me. I had made a mistake, a terrible, unforgivable mistake, and now I had to live with the consequences.